Hey guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage. We are back working on Dad's Daily. So we got some parts that I've been stashing for the car for a little while now, and now that we got the suspension kind of sorted on the car, I need to order some new front tires for it to get the front end up just a little bit, and I think it'll be sitting pretty darn sweet, but we can wait on that till a little later on the project. So one of the things that's really bothered me with the car since we've gotten it is the steering column situation. It's in the car. As you may remember when I went through the car and did the basic walkthrough of it, Carl and his brother had basically cut off the steering column about halfway up, and they had just like put roll pins in with a rag joint and then put some kind of tilt column in. I think it might be GM, I'm not sure. And it's very, very like 70s, 80s street rod, and we're trying to do something a little more retro with this, even though it does have a, power plant from that era in it. So one of our local viewers, Will, was very nice and contacted me and said that he had a spare steering box from end to end with, the column drop, the key, everything, steering wheel, sitting in his storage from his car, and he offered it up to me, and of course I was very excited, and he dropped that off, so thank you, Will. We're going to be working on getting that in, and then also I'd like to start working on trying to get the old gas tank dropped down in the car. I'm pretty sure that the rubber hoses on it or the fill neck are leaking. I could smell old gas every time you get near the car, so we're going to get that old gas tank out of the car. And we have this new one here that the Oklahoma boys that stopped by earlier in this year when we did our little trip to Georgia and Florida. They brought that down for me, so thank you guys, appreciate that. And we're going to be working on dropping the old tank, and we'll see if we get to putting the new one in. But that's kind of the idea, is start getting some of the old stuff out, get the better stuff in there. So let's get started. Stand and had it leaning against that bench there. Tell this was built a little later because it's got metric 12-point socket I had to use. Alright, so I got our bolts out there. Now I'm moving into the car to take this ugly tilt column out, and this is the typical stuff you find. There is a exhaust clamp bolted to some previously rusty old brackets that were heated and bent underneath it here. So we're going to be taking all of that out because we're putting a stock column back in, so we should be able to get all those brackets. But this is the stuff definitely for buying these old cars. Make sure you're checking what's going on for the steering and safety aspects of the cars, because this is probably not the greatest with the way that's set up. Probably should have something a little more bulky, but it is bolted in at least. So I'm going to take these bolts out up here, and we could drop the column down, and I have the bolts out on the other side, so if we can separate and pull this whole mess out in one shot. This car wasn't ever driven, so a lot of this stuff they probably would have figured out as they started driving it.
She's kind of in mock-up.
Yes, this is actually, he told me they rushed to get this thing together to drive it around the yard. After Carl, when I go to visit Carl, right now I only visit him like once a month or so, but in the summer I go by at least once a week to visit him. Drive an old car over, I'll have lunch and sit with him and his wife in the kitchen and talk. But last time I was over, I sold some stuff for him, and I was asking him about this car now that I dug in, and I was like, what's going on with the this and the that? He's like, look, you're going to find some stuff that's definitely not okay. He said, but you got to understand, my brother was in a hurry to get this thing so he could drive it around the yard, so we just threw some stuff together with, a torch and scrap iron. And he's like, and we drove it around the yard. We got it done. So I can appreciate that. I've done that many times. Cobbled something together because you want to just have fun and see what it's like to drive it around the yard. All I can think of is we could spread that.
It's all yours.
It's free?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Oh, okay. Yeah, we're just calling on the. There we go. I just got to disconnect that shifter.
It's got a car key in it, I think.
I pulled it out already, but I couldn't get the.
Hold on, you got one on the back side. Oh no, it's
Yeah, it's just a rod, but I think I have to There we go. Yeah, got it. Yeah, I pulled the cotter pin, but I couldn't get the clearance. All right. There is our tilt column. D80s, the car. Yeah, she was shut down during all that too, but when they came back. All right.
Oh, you got it?
Yep, I got it.
I don't.
That's that magical fuel. Out. There we go. Sweet. Works. All right, so we got our old steering box out, which is down here. And we can actually, the steering box isn't in bad shape itself, so I'm going to keep it around for parts or donor or whatever, but it can be scabbed into another column if need be, but they had this rag joint set up here that we don't want, so we're obviously not going to use that, but that's out of the way. This box that Will gave us is actually in really good shape. It feels really tight when I was spinning everything around, but it's really hard sometimes to get to this fill for the gear lube for the steering box, so while we had it out, I figured I'd fill it. A lot of people ask about like what to use in these early Ford steering boxes. I got this a while ago, and I don't know how many steering boxes in, maybe 4 or 5 steering boxes, and I'm still have a bunch left, but it's this Penrite steering box lube, and it's actually made for like antique cars and antique tractors for steering boxes, and it is like I'm gonna get a funnel, but it's like more of a grease consistency. It's like a heated up grease consistency, so it's not really an oil. You want something that's thick, that's not going to be oil-like, that's just going to run out of the box. So I'm going to use some of this, and we'll squeeze it in that hole, get a good amount of it in there, and that should make it last the rest of our lifetime. It probably won't need any more because it's probably never had any put in there. But I'm going to grab a little tiny funnel so that we don't get grease everywhere, and we'll drop it in there. Bloop. It's a little not very hot out today, obviously, so I'm probably not going to be able to use this funnel. That was a good idea for half a second. Alright. Guess we'll do it the messy way. Mike won't use that. Or he might use it just so people laugh. It's like just the right, it's like liquidy grease.
Yeah.
But it's too thick to go through a funnel easily. When I've done it on like a 90-degree day, that you can get away with the funnel, but I just pulled it off the concrete, well, not the concrete floor, but out of the chemical cabinet.
Oh, she's nice and smooth.
Yeah, that's definitely helping.
Yeah. Immediately.
That's crazy.
I'm just fingering it.
Yeah. As Pete would say, is she breathing hard?
Yeah, up on your, yeah. There we go. Okay. Probably gonna have to do that bottom one and then remember what's going on. All right, so we got the steering box in, 2 bolts in down at the bottom. We left them a little loose, and now we can pretty much mount all this stuff back up like stock if everything goes well, as planned, fingers crossed. This off. Yeah, since there's nothing under the dash, it's all floating around. So this steering column actually gives a lot of rigidity to the steering, to the dash. Put that in there. All right, so we got the steering box all mounted up both at the dash and on the frame there. And the next thing we have to address when you're using a cross steer steering box, depending on the car and how much drop you have in your axle and really how everything's set up, this may differ. But what you may have to do is, so the steering, whoops, got this flipped. So this goes up like this on a taper here, and this end here goes up, and where it really needs to sit, we need to re-taper the steering arm here, because it's meant to have the tie rod to go from the top, and that's not going to work. So I think the first thing we're going to do is, now the suspension as it rises, we gain more clearance here, so it's really dramatic. It was throwing us off when we were testing it. But what we're going to need to do is get a taper. I have one of these tapered reamers that has the correct angle. You can get it at a lot of early Ford restoration type places, or you can just get it at your tool dealer. It sells reamers, but this tapered reamer, what we could do is run this in from the bottom so that the tapered fit for the tie rod will go in from the bottom, and we will have the clearance that we need, because right now it is almost touching right now, and we don't even have the tie rod up in there. But when we put the lift down, I could actually get like my whole arm in between this gap here, so we have plenty of room if we go from the bottom there, and just by spinning the tie rod. So I'm gonna take this off, and we're gonna ream the bottom of that, get the tie rod to fit, and then we can get everything bolted up for the steering. All right, so we got a reamer all set up in the drill here. We're gonna try this with the drill and see how it works. Got some cutting fluid. Put down in here. And I got a spare tie rod that I can use to just check our work. But it doesn't take a lot. That might have even been it. Well, we're getting there. Before we couldn't even get the threads through, so we're... Yeah, there we go. So we want to go a little more, because I'm actually using an old tie rod so I can see how far it goes through. We can also flip it over and check, but you can see actually, not much more than what we have is where it's coming through. So we probably want to go a little bit more, but we're just about there. As long as you can get the nut on and get the cotter pin on, you're kind of good. All right, so I got that all cut, and I think we're pretty good. You can see we got this fitting up in there. Threads are sticking up, and we have plenty of thread engagement. It'll actually come through the top of the castle nut just a little bit, and we should be good there, and then we can get our cotter pin through no problem at all. So that's all looking really good, and it just took a couple seconds. That's definitely an instance of having this correct taper reamer is worth its weight in gold. That took only a few seconds, and it's a perfect cut, or a few minutes, and we're ready to go. So we're going to get our drag link back in. We should be able to bolt it all up and put the car back down, and throw the steering wheel on and see how it steers. Let's see if I can. Third time's a charm. There we go. Probably only going to be able to get this just started. Oh no, it's good. And when that drops down, that'll give us the clearance we need underneath. From the wishbone. All right, let's see if we got clearance. Fingers crossed. Oh yeah. I like fit my hand.
steering box is actually pretty smooth. Surprising. Plenty of turning radius. Awesome. That's fantastic. Couldn't be happier. All right, so got the steering box and column and all that mounted up in, and it went pretty darn easy because we were putting like stock stuff back in. What a novel idea for me was putting stock items back in the car, but much better than what was in there. We want kind of the retro look of the car and want a retro look and feel when it's done, and that tilt column just wasn't doing it for me. So by getting this wheel in, you know, right now I just threw on just a stock 46 to 48 wheel that came on the steering box and column that Will hooked us up with, and that should be just fine for now to get this thing rolling around. We checked all the steering and clearances and everything's good. It steers nice. Putting that new grease in the steering box made it really nice and easy to steer. So I think we are good to go as far as the steering stuff goes. So we can kind of move on with the project. Also, while I was at it, I pulled out that horrible interior that I have hated since the day we looked at the car and threw it in the back of my truck to get rid of it in a dumpster. So that stuff is going bye-bye. Now we have a bunch of fiberglass gross mess in the trunk we'll have to take care of, but we'll work on that when we get to it. So that's a big update on the Dad's Daily. Excited to have some of the key parts going back into this car and moving forward really quickly. So thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it. Catch you later.